Amidst the rising popularity of emerging digital tools such as artificial intelligence or AI, business leaders and consumers alike are increasingly keen to leverage new and emerging technologies in either making work easier or increasing revenues. This includes those that want hassle-free billing or invoicing and collection of water and power bills for their apartments, estates or commercial buildings.
When I talk about smart, it means we can be able to read all the contents remotely, send them back to Revenue Stadia servers. Once we've gotten that data, we can be able to consume it, generate reports, create scripts that we can now use to control the meters.
This is an example of a smart power meter. But how do they work and what are the differences as opposed to conventional meters?
In controlling the meters, we can either switch them on and off. So when I talk about controlling, that is what we do with the meters. They have a breaker inside. We send a command. The command switches it on or it switches off the meter. So basically how it works, a very much integrated platform, a software, where we get in all the tenants or all the customers. Let's assume this is a utility. We get all the customers within our system called Revenue Stadia. Once we've gotten the customers in and we've installed the meters on site, now we assign this particular meter to the customer.
We meet Colin Cyril, the head of networks and innovations from Revenue Stadia, a cloud platform that combines billing management and smart meter devices to produce a centralized billing. Collins notes that smart metering technology is uninterrupted and wireless, meaning that users are able to connect to their meters wherever they are. However, this technology still needs collaboration and enabling policy for it to scale.
Right now we only have Kenya Power and small other distributors, but for the small distributors they are limited towards their small regions. So we would like if the government could open up, get so many distributors in a region.
Companies like Revenue Stadia are leveraging on technology as demanded by consumers, converting day-to-day components to smart usable devices. Alan Naoko, Tech One.
It is indeed the last day of the second March of 2024, the 29th day of February 2024. My name is Ben Troy Njoe. Good morning and welcome to Biz Check here until about 12 p.m. We will divide these 2 hours into two, where the first hour we are looking at the real estate industry in the country and some of the things that have been done to ensure that this vibrant industry is as vibrant as ever. And in the second hour, we will be looking at conference tourism, where I will be engaging an expert to know more and exactly what is conference tourism. My name is Ben Troy Njoe, and our sign language interpreter is Anne Wangeshi. For comments, suggestions, or even where you are watching us from, we highly welcome. Now, the real estate sector is one of the fastest growing in the country, and this year alone, it has been projected to hit the highs of $697.8 billion US. So you see, it's quite a big industry. And in as much as it is a vibrant and a big industry, there are some issues and sectors that we need to look into, especially now that we have a number of things happening in that industry, including the affordable housing project. But also, in as much as we are looking at the houses and the real estate, we also look at other factors in this vibrant sector that include the real estate courses. Yes, we know very well that land matters quite emotive in the country of Kenya, and we are going to break down all this and what exactly it entails to have more skills in actually knowing how the industry is and much, much more. And allow me now to rope in my panel of experts, beginning from my immediate left. My immediate left, we have Simplicius Ochieng, who is the Chief Manager, Finance and Administration, University of Nairobi Enterprises and Services, UNES. And just next to him, we have Sam Ochieng. Sam Ochieng is the Head of Corporate Communication and Marketing and also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. Gentlemen, karibuni sana.
Thank you.
And also we are expecting to be live with Mr. Michelle Ondieki, who is the CEO of US Africa Opportunity Network, that is US AFON, who is also going to break it to us how the real estate industry has been quite vibrant in the United States. And you can see him there. He's getting us live from Los Angeles, California. And we'll be engaging him to know what can we borrow from such developed market as the United States right here in the country. But first things first, allow me to rope in my guest, beginning from you, Simplicius Ochieng. The University of Nairobi has designed and crafted courses touching on the real estate, something that we have not seen in a number of years. Kindly tell us a little about that.
Yes, thank you for hosting us in the first place. University of Nairobi has a degree program in real estate, but we've seen there's also a need for short course programs to enhance skill and knowledge. We acknowledge that in the market out there, we have quite a number of people who are practicing real estate, but lack this essential skill and knowledge. So to enable, to level the ground for real estate.
Just a minute, we will need to have a look at that microphone, but before we have a look at that, maybe Sam, you can touch a little bit on what are some of these courses that we have at the University of Nairobi.
Thank you very much, Ben. In fact, allow me to take you a little bit back to understand what UNES is all about. UNES is the University of Nairobi Enterprises and Services Limited. It was coined back in 1996.
You talked about limited.
Limited.
So more or less a subsidiary of
it's
the...
It's a subsidiary, yeah, exactly. Subsidiary of the University of Nairobi, wholly owned by the University of Nairobi, crafted in 1996, May the 23rd. The drafters of Enterprises saw it fit to come out with an outfit that will alleviate university as a whole in terms of financial matters. It is only inculcating the entrepreneurial side of the business. It has several business portfolio, one being the consultancy to which in a micro setup or in a micro is going to talk about in the short courses. But in a macro aspect, it has several business portfolio. We have consultancy itself, which trades with the government, MDAs, and NGOs, and managing the donor-funded programs, and in other words, also connected to the industry in terms of bringing the short courses to the fore, to the common wananchi. We have medical services, specialist medical services. We talk of the eye center and the dental care, which is a premier medical institution that is situated along Valley Road.
All right, and another thing, how is it related to these courses that you're teaching on real estate?
Let me tell you, university is a center of excellence. UNES is now providing the solution and connecting to the industry. So you bringing the real estate in, talking of the industry, talking of the UN, it is all offering value addition to that has been taught. You talk of degree courses that are being brought. Then we also felt that there is need for short courses to complement those that never made it to the university. They're already practicing. I don't want to talk about it because it's here to also elaborate much of it. But I think to bring you closer then, we also have hospitality. In hospitality, we are now serving the offices and the corporate world, not just the university students alone or staff, but even the corporate world. We have bookshop, which are selling the books that are publicly or published by the localized professors and doctors, and also we are going to e-books so that we connect.
All right. So, all right. First things first, you tell us a little bit more in regards to what exactly you're doing. First of all, let's actually have the opening statement from Michelle Ondieki, live from Los Angeles. All right, I'm informed that we will be getting that link a little bit later, but allow me to come back to Simplicius Ochieng. Apologies for that technical hitch, but what exactly you are talking about is what you decided as a university to rope in, because it's quite a vibrant industry. We're talking about almost in the next, say 5-10 years, we'll be hitting the highs of $1 billion in the sector.
Yeah, true. As I earlier on said, UNES, we are looking at where are the gaps in our society. Then what fits within the university, and what can we now come in to fill those gaps in a capacity where university in its own stature doesn't fit. You know, because a university is mandated, it's teaching degrees, postgraduate diplomas, as well as research. But now we have people, high school guys who found themselves in real estate. And maybe immediately after school, there was nothing he was doing. So he had to come in and help an uncle or a relative or a friend or just something that comes by. Then you get yourself in it. 10 years later, you're still doing the same thing. But you lack the fundamental trainings, but you're into it. So this is why we are coming. And we're not saying these are the people that we are now saying after our training, then they are valid to go for maybe do what the law says as a sales agent is supposed to do. There are particular regulatory bodies that guide us. So us is just to fill the training aspect of enhancing skill and knowledge to those people. And also the transactions, be it the financing, be it the documentation, and so on.
The cost
These are
itself,
tricky
because
areas.
I'm quite sure a number of Kenyans are watching this. The cost itself, it's 4 years.
No, the course, the degree course is 4 years. And this one is taken through the University Admissions Organization. You qualify, and you can join any of the other universities. I think we have 4 universities or 5 universities taking the same. We also have it at diploma level, given with the TVET. And also, they have quite a number of online platforms that somebody can join. But the online is actually international. So whatever you're going to get is not domesticated to the Kenyan environment. And there, I think, again, you'll find there's a mismatch if you're going to go the online without actually domesticating that knowledge to what we have. And that's exactly what we've done. We've domesticated what is required, what's relevant to the Kenyan market, as well as bring on board partners. Like we have the diaspora market is quite big. How do you connect that investment to Kenyan now market? Then, as you rightly said, the affordable housing is going to be a game changer in this country in terms of real estate. So how do we position? How are we positioning our people to harness that, to benefit? So all that is what is going to cover. We are going to cover that. Basically, our course, the short course training, we are expanding, but we have to start somewhere. We started with the sales agents. These are people actually who just bring the buyer and the seller together. Sales come in all spheres. You can have sellers at high levels. You can have sales reps at very low levels. So we are training those low levels to understand this market. What is it? What does it involve in terms of when you're dealing with a seller, when you're dealing with a buyer, when you're leasing? Just have the fundamental knowledge about that. And also, what is it? You know, some of these, they come across different deeds. How is it? So it's good to enlighten them. And this is a course, the 3-month course, which is just enlightens them on what is it exactly. And then also we have the brokerage, which is the sales agent course, which is a 6-month course. This again now brings on the brokers. Now people who have been, you know, brokerage is something that Kenyans associate with a broker. People don't want that term, but internationally, real estate, brokerage is the common term, where locally we have them as sales agents. These are people who now will be more professional in that area, but also there are regulations that govern that, so they have to meet those regulations. Ours is just to meet, and there are a bit of legal aspects that we'll also be teaching in terms of in those programs. If we can get Michelle will be able to expound that now in details.
Yeah, it's a good thing you've mentioned him. Let's first of all cross over to Los Angeles, United States. Okay, we are still waiting for that feed, but as soon as we do, we want to have a feel of how the real estate industry is in the United States and what some of the key lessons as a country, Kenya, we can borrow now that we have a number of the real estate projects, including the affordable housing. Back to you, Ocheng. I'm looking at the industry. You're talking about almost $1 billion industry. What is making Kenya quite robust. And if you look at the region is not quite as robust as Kenya.
That's very true. I would term that statement a little bit political. But allow me to bring in politics, because politics, when you look at it within the sphere of strategic management, it plays a role. Kenya is a lucrative area in terms of the East Africa hub and the catchment area for the investors. We are talking of the use of phone. There's a whole network which covers the global aspect. So Kenya is a spot on. The environment for doing business in Kenya has proven to be a landmark, and we get a lot of interest that are coming in. I don't know, for us to offer this kind of value addition in terms of professional courses, the one that he's talking about, and other many more, then it puts us into some sort of a bedrock for the basis to start now doing business in Kenya, or enhancement of that business in Kenya, in terms of real estate transactions and enhancements. We are talking of the knowledge transfers here. So then it puts us in a global map. It gives us that autonomy and the airtime to trade, and that can be found enhanced at the University of Nairobi, offered by University of Nairobi Enterprise and Services Limited. Yes.
And let me just add to that. I would like to say the figure that you've mentioned, that is not it. When you look at people who are really interested in investing in Kenya, the diaspora, unless you know somebody, we've had cases where people actually invest. You know, you have a brother, you have a relative who is in the States, for example, and wants to build a house in Kenya. Many of them have been, you're sending money, but you've never seen that thing. Only you get pictures of something that's not yours. But here, if it's regulated the way the Act is looking at, and also people who are involved, they understand this is a profession. I need to guard it. I'm protected by I have to abide by the code of conduct and so on. Then definitely we're going to sanitize that and have more investments in the country. Comparatively to other countries, surrounding countries, I think it's a matter of fact that Kenya, in terms of its economic advancements compared to the neighbors, we are among the top. So definitely everything else has to follow suit and surround about that. And possibly we're looking towards being like a Nigeria, being a trading hub. If that comes to then, we'll have more investments in this country.
Let me visit a word that you use, which is quite synonymous with the real estate sector: brokers.
Yes.
And I will say brokers have quite made the issue of buying land, acquiring property, quite emotive in the country. And now coming up with tailor-made courses such as the real estate one, will it instill confidence in Kenyans and our brothers and sisters who are living abroad to invest in the real estate sector?
Yes. I think in terms of our training, we want to use the word broker as opposed to sales to estate agents, because when you look at it, this course and these trainings are not unique to Kenya. These are things that are offered all over the world, first developed countries and so on. So unless we have terminologies that are actually synonymous, they actually, if you mean a broker, what does a broker mean in Kenya? What does a broker mean in the US? What does a broker mean in the UK and Australia or wherever? Even in Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. Let's use a term that is actually common. We've used so many words because maybe we didn't have space for them. Rather, we had not defined what really estate brokers are. Then people have used that, I was going to say, one of the gaps we have estate agents that are registered, but we get quite a big proportion within urban areas, within Nairobi. What's happening in Garissa? What's happening in Busia? What's happening in Athi River, not really Athi River, down there, where people they're not professionals. These things are being handled by, in quotes, quacks. So these are the people are referring to them as brokers, but what they're doing, they are somewhat serving that purpose for which there was a gap.
Yes.
So if we have this skill in them, then definitely we're trying to narrow the gap. In future, possibly just eliminate it totally. Yeah.
And let's now bring in Michelle Ondieki, live from United States. Is actually in LA, is joining us live. And if you can hear me, I think it's good night or good morning in LA. Ondieki, kindly tell us what makes the real estate sector in the United States very, very vibrant, and what are some of the lessons that as a country we can learn from the real estate industry in the United States?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks so much for having me this morning your time. Real estate really is the engine of the economy, any economy. but the industry has to be very structured to be able to do these things. For example, in this country, there are hundreds of thousands of, they're called real estate agents and real estate brokers. I know in Kenya, the term brokers, as simplicious as said, is rather looked at a bit differently. But the amount of taxes that are paid from these people to the economy is massive. That's number one. So this is extremely structured. Number two, you know, in Kenya, sometimes we find ourselves in a problem where you purchase a property through a broker or an agent. In the morning, in the afternoon, you can't find him. In the evening, you are taken to court. You don't even have the paperwork. In the US, if an agent is involved in a transaction, they have to keep those documents for 5 years so that, you know, people can verify. Once the deal has been done, the transaction has been done, actually, if you are selling a property to me, we don't have to know one another. What happens is I find my agent who is registered in Kenya. They call it registered. In the US, it's licensed. Registered or licensed in this case. And US is registered and licensed. I can go check and confirm their ID number. And by the way, whenever they walk around, if they have a business card, for example, the business card has to have their ID, their license number. Now, my agent will talk to your agent. They start negotiating on our behalf. Once the negotiation has been done, then there's a second tier called an escrow service. This is a massive amount of economy. This is companies that actually do these transactions without caring about a seller or the buyer. All they care about is the agreement that has been drawn. Then there is what we call a title insurance. This is, again, something that is foreign in Kenya and many African countries. But the way it works is, if I'm buying a property from you, once we've agreed that you are selling that property to me, then, of course, we go to this independent company. And in some areas, they use lawyers, but in other areas, they use...
Hello, Ondieki?
To do the title search. Make sure that the property you're selling me is yours. Mm-hmm. If it is yours, they'll actually check and see if you had that title insured for your own property, so that if somebody robs it from you, tries to do some hanky-panky stuff with that property, now they can, they have it protected. When I purchase the property, then I also buy title insurance for it, which means if some other guy comes and tries to claim my property, the title insurance will fight for me. And if they lose, they will pay me the money I used to purchase that property. So that completely eliminates this fraud that we see around where, somebody goes and sells another guy's property and so on and so forth. So there are many, many lessons to be learned. And as Simplicia mentioned before, at US Africa Opportunity Network, this is not something new we are doing. We've actually worked with the University of Gold Coast in Ghana. That is the latest one that we worked with, to establish a course there. What happens is the agents who are trained there come to the US annually to meet with not only their Ghanaian diaspora, but also interact with other agents for what they call National Association of Realtors events, which brings in thousands and thousands of people from across the country, and end up doing a lot of deals. So if you look at the amount of transactions that are done in Ghana from people in diaspora, US diaspora, compared, US and Canada in this case, compared to Kenya, you realize the trajectory is that in Kenya, the number has been going down. In Ghana, it's been going up. And I know in Kenya, people say, okay, we are seeing a lot of money from diaspora. Diaspora is very segmented in a way because of many different factors. So the money that we see in Kenya that comes from diaspora, majority of that comes from mainly the Middle East. Mm-hmm. But there's tons and tons and tons of money in the US and Canada and Australia in this case that can be invested back in the country by the Kenyans in diaspora, directly or indirectly. And I want at some point to talk more about indirectly. If you go to Israel, if you visited Israel, you realize that in the western part of Israel, they have a whole bunch of communities they call kibbutz. Most of those communities are built by money from Israelis in the diaspora in the US. If you look at a majority of the infrastructure in Israel, it's actually put together and built using funds that have been raised, so to speak, from the Israeli diaspora in the US. And this is something that has been going on for many years, and other countries have benefited the same way.
Yeah. Indeed, and back in studio, I'll be getting back to you again, Ondieki, to tell us the diaspora in regards to the investment and taking back, just like you've noted that a lot of Israelis in the United States are contributing hugely in the real estate industry in Israel. But back here in studio, we are looking at some of the costs that are surrounding also the real estate and housing in the country. The cost of acquiring the land is quite high. The cost of brokerage is also high, the legal fees and everything. Now, if we factor in a professional who has been at the University of Nairobi and has studied this course, he knows a lot about real estate, it's going to push the cost even higher. How do we bring it so that it may be affordable to Kenyans as well?
Element cost is something that you have to look at it from a 360 degree. A cost, I don't know, you may have an item that is, its cost is, you term it high, but in the long term, it proves to be much cheaper. Yeah, is it cheaper? Like we go for like then the social health care program, which is going now to take care of preventive health, which the government is now alluding to, as opposed to is preventive as opposed to treatment. Treatment is very expensive. If you go to a quack and then you account out of your money, then you lose everything. You lose all your investments. But a profession who abides by a code of conduct, who's regulated, I better pay that one and be sure. That's why you go for insurance. It's not a must that you'll get that, the risk will like to criticize, but if by bad luck it happens, then you are cushioned. Yes, but all the same, you find the government, I think it's in negotiation, and part of our program, degree program, is looks at all those things. How do you make a building cheaper? What are the cheaper ways? We've gone green. I think there's a whole unit in that which is being taught at the university, both at architectural and real estate. So at length, we'll not go into those details of, but then at the university where you touch on everything now in its own perspective, then it touches on that. And there's a lot of research which is going on, and the University of Nairobi is actually at the forefront in recognition of all that to make it affordable for people, even in your own private investment, you can make it cheaper. Yes.
And actually, I totally concur, but I'm looking at the land matters here in the country. If you look at the bulk of all the court cases that we have in the court, maybe it's about 70% are all touching on matters land, matters settlements. In what we are doing as making sure that even we have scholars that can help us try and avoid these loopholes as a cost that you are talking about. Are these things also factored in? Because we are looking at issues surrounding land, and even we have lost a lot of people because of land issues as well. How can we make sure that we have tailor-made?
I think to bring you to speed, I don't want to now start dissecting into the course content. And we are trying to...
no, we actually really have the data.
But I think in terms of the ethical part of it, because I think that's where you are leading to, that is covered. And remember the sales aspect, the law part of it, and how those engagements, tidbits, and customer care, all that is being encompassed. And by the time you are given that after 3 months, there is the one for 3 months and there's one for 6 months, you will not be the very same person. You will do business differently, you will take care of your clients differently, with a lot of ethics that bond the business itself. But I wanted to also remind you that how then do we get our potential or esteemed client come in to register? These can be found in our websites. We have our LinkedIn account, UNES Limited, also Facebook, UNES Limited, Twitter, which is now called the X at UNES Limited, and also can be circulated through that. What does it take, or what is it that you need to do? Just register, get the link, register, we'll have your database, and all that accompanies, including the course content and the brief, will be sent to you. The one that lasts for 3 months, that is sales agent certificate, is at 69 inclusive of VAT, 69,600 inclusive of VAT. Remember, VAT, you have also to factor that in. And the one that cost, go for 6 months is 185,600 inclusive of VAT. So that is what we are talking about.
Engaging two scholars here in regards to real estate and housing in the country. Just a quick introduction, Simplicius Ochieng, who is the Chief Manager, Finance Administration, University of Nairobi, Enterprise and Services, that is UNEAS. And also we have Sam Ochieng, Head of Corporate Communication and Marketing, and also a lecturer at the University of Nairobi. But we also have Michelle Ondieki, who is a CEO at the US Africa Opportunity Network, US AFON. He's joining us live from Los Angeles, in the United States. And before we cross over to the United States, I would like to ask you one question in regards to the affordable housing project that the government has embarked on. Is it more or less a competition to the real estate industry, or a complementation?
It's a complementation. Because you require them. Basically, real estate, the agencies, you bring the buyer and the seller together, as well as the transaction. You facilitate the transaction. So you find that will happen when affordable housing. I'll talk about the relevance of what we're doing in terms of the affordable housing. One key aspect we're going to emphasize on is on financing. Financing is a major problem to many of the investors we have in this country. More so, the target market of these affordable housings, we're looking at possibly the low mid-income group. What many people know about is going to your bank or going to a circle to get this money. But hardly do you know that you can do creative financing, which Michelle talked about. You could get, how do people access funds from diaspora? You can do that. How do you access our provident funds? You can get money from there. How do you get it from mortgage institutions? How do you get a cheaper mortgage institution? Are you limited to Kenyan mortgage institutions? We want to open up people so that they understand this financing sphere, where you can get cheaper credit. Let's not be tied with the current financial markets, where the credits, it's called what? Interest, bank interest, they are quite over 10%. You'll be surprised in the US is possibly 2% to 6%. Other places it could be maybe in that range. So you shop, we tell them how to shop around and look at all those kind of options. Your earlier question, I just want to say, why people being conned? Kenyans have, I don't know, some of it is just due to ignorance. The same way we are very ignorant about how to lower your cost of financing. We need to be on a lookout. You need to know when you go to a bank, ask your banker questions. When you go into a mortgage institution, before you append your signature on that form, please ask the right questions, and also do your homework well. So these are kind of things. We just want to open up people. This is the direction you need to think. We're not giving you the right solutions, but we're just showing you this is how to think to be successful in this area. So yes, it will be very relevant in that sense.
Yeah, and let's now cross over to LA. And Ondieki, I'm looking at diaspora remittances last year. They hit over 460 billion. And a lot of the diaspora people here have already invested in the real estate in the country. And as Simplicia said, that a lot of them have also lost a number of $1 million in regards to investing in real estate in the country. How do we incentivize the diaspora to ensure that you invest more in the country in the real estate?
That's a wonderful question, and I have to thank you for that. We've engaged several entities on this particular item. as you know, and when you look at the remittances and look at the map on how remittances are done to the country, the majority of these remittances come from the US and Canada. I can tell you that the amount of money that comes from the US is not even 5% of the potential. This is the reason. When you talk to a central bank, for example, they will tell you that the majority of these funds that are sent to Kenya are sent to take care of a school fees of somebody or pay something for somebody else and so on and so forth. A few dollars are sent in to build a house for residential. A very minimal amount will be seen in a few apartments here and there. Now, this is the thing, and these are the numbers, and I believe the ministry has these statistics. We have in the US, for example, about 150,000 Kenyans. Out of 150,000 Kenyans, these are first generation, by the way, first generation. There is a second generation because remember Kenyans started coming here in the 60s. There is a second generation and third generation of Kenyans who have massive amounts of money. Now, let me confine myself to the first generation of Kenyans, meaning the people who boarded their plane from JFK and came to the US. Out of 150,000 Kenyans who live in the US, about 50,000 of those have worked in the US in jobs that have earned them a fair amount of money for a long period of time. Meaning, these people have what in Kenya would be considered as providence funds. Here they call them IRAs. These are retirement funds that the US government encourages people to self-direct to whatever investment wherever they can, and is protected by the US government. All right? Now, think about it this way. An average Kenyan has about $350,000 in an IRA that is movable to be invested, about 350. And this is about 50,000 Kenyans. Do the math. It's billions and billions of shillings that could be directed to be invested in Kenya. And I alluded earlier to the amount of investment that has been done in Israel. Now, this is where these funds come from. That's number one. Number two, and I want to go fairly quickly. The real estate market in the US is cyclical. We've studied this market from the 1700s, so we know exactly how it works. This time around, the cycle has been a little bit longer. But what happens here is the market goes up and down. You buy property for, if you are in Oklahoma, for example, you buy a house for $200,000 today. 5 years down the road, the value is going to go to $500,000. If you're in LA, you buy a house for $1 million today. Maybe a year down the road, it's going to be worth $3 million. This is the difference between the US and Kenya and probably many other countries. That equity, if I bought a property for $1 million in LA and it went out to $5 million, I can go to the bank and refinance. And I know in Kenya, we have the Kenya Refinance Mortgage Company now that is trying to do this. And there are some issues there, but, they go out and refinance and get this $3 million. What do you do with that money in the US? This is the interesting part. If you keep this money in the bank, I know we used to talk about certificates of deposit. In the US, you get 0.25% interest. Unless you're a business person who invests it in something here, then it's not going to make any sense. So what is the logical way of doing this? This is what people from Mexico, people from India, people from Philippines, people from Israel, and many other countries have done. When the market gets close to the peak, as it is today, in the US, the market is almost at the peak today, these people refinance and pull out all this money and take it to the countries where they can invest it at higher returns. Think about it this way. If the real estate investment trust that we put in the country, the stock market, if they appealed to these people to invest at 8%, and I know they pay more, 8%, what do you think would happen? These people would be excited to invest those funds there, right? The problem now is there is a disconnect between knowledge of what is possible and security and safety of these funds. So to cut the story short here, the fact is, if there was that connection between, and by the way, this is part of the stuff that is being discussed fairly extensively in the course that Simplicia spoke about. These are some of the things that if there was some coordination, and by the way, people need to stop thinking about the government to do things for them, because the government, even the US government, doesn't do these things. The private sector could do these things. The government, so long as the government puts together the regulations that facilitate, enables people to do these things, institutions like banks could sit down and come up with these structures and say, okay, let's figure out how to go raise funds in the US. Do we have the right structures in Kenya? Yes, we do, because I know some structures have been put in place. Does the US law allow this? Oh, yes, it does. And it protects this money, because these Kenyans are Americans as well. So the US government protects their money. It will make sure that that money is taken care of. But at the end of the day, then we have enough liquidity to take care of the issues we have. In the past few months, we've had a few issues with the dollar, the fluctuation of the shilling, the weakness of the shilling. And, of course, we didn't have enough dollars in the marketplace, which caused a few problems. You ask yourself, if there was some coordination, how much more of the 460 billion shillings would the country receive in terms of dollars to, push up the economy? So I think the private sector, it's up to the private sector to do this. But also what UNES is doing at the University of Nairobi is a wonderful thing to start explaining some of these things to the business community in Kenya, and connect these people with diaspora countries that, I would name US, I would name Canada, I would name Australia, some European countries where these funds could be raised from. At least the US has the laws that allows for this, to do a lot of development in the country at a very low cost, because the cost of construction starts with the cost of money. If you get money at a cheaper rate, interest rate, then everything else starts moving the same direction.
All right. And back in studio, it shows we have a lot to learn from the United States, and I'm happy that we are engaging some of the Kenyans who are living there to just give us a feel of how maybe we can twerk our real estate industry to make it even more vibrant. But back to you, Sam. He has talked about the cost of production, and I'm looking at the cost of materials here in the country. You find that a number of Kenyans, whether it's business or whether it's residential, are opting to buy most of the finishing and some of the roofing from abroad, which is almost killing some of these industries. And the real estate industry is just not the construction itself, it's the whole sector. How do we ensure that we protect even the local manufacturers, so that we may ensure that this is our own project, we are doing everything in-house as opposed to importing a lot of the things, the fittings, the finishing?
That is very true, Ben. It all calls about the policy matters. I think that's where now the institutions such as the institution of higher learning and the professional aspects of integration comes in. We are Kenyans. I don't know, we like good things. We would want to be identified by classy things. But I think the government is coming out Nandi to bring in the affordable housing, of course. And he made it very clear that it is not in any way competing with any other. But then the affordable housing now brings that to regulate, because you can as well make one of the best structures with affordable, locally produced items, which I think the authority is doing. So I don't want to really, again, diverge into that. But also we are enterprising, and our appetite is very high to do business. And that's what defines Kenya as the East African hub. But I think we need to tone down to ensure that we use the localized produced items to make this affordable housing one that is real, one that we can consume. And I think the government is already delving into that through the agencies. The other bit that I think probably you needed to have touched on is, what about those professionals that do not have, the marketing basics? And what is the element that this course is going to bring to them, to the unregistered and to the registered. Let me tell you, you may not benefit from being a lawyer or a land valuer or a trained 4 years. But I think when you undergo through this course, there are certain fiduciary roles or duties that you will be taught. We talk of the obedience and the loyalty and the ethics and the accounting and the customer care that will come along. So there are so much more into it. What about the registered agents, those that are already practicing? They are going to now know how to do niche marketing with a professional touch, and that can only be found at UNES, University of Nairobi. How then do you not shoot in the air and also interlinked with the diaspora? And I think my colleague Ondiki has really benevolently covered that. And I think through the basics that one would understand. So thank you again.
Maybe you can touch on why of course, we are importing a lot of raw materials so that better houses, of course, and better housing. But as the president said, that we really need to bring all these raw materials home. If it's a cement, if it's the mabatis, if it's the fittings, if it's the plumbing, all those. But unfortunately, we are importing a lot, and especially when it comes to real estate, the houses that somebody wants to sell, he wants them to look exquisite. So he imports a lot of raw materials, and unfortunately, that is killing the real estate industry.
Yes. Partly, knowledge is a very key aspect in this. It's actually wealth in itself. People, our local manufacturers, people with innovative ideas, you find that they're not really outgoing to showcase what they've developed. When you visit these showgrounds, exhibitions, you find quite a number of innovative building materials that are actually out there. One, you'll find these people, either they don't have the capital to now do mass production of those items, or they don't have this exposure to now let everybody know. Not unless you've attended those exhibitions, you'll not really know. But I promise, if you go to KCC when they have those things, you realize as long as as much as we have the international materials, our local materials also increase in the presence of local. So it's upon ourselves really to look at it internally and see what is good for us, what is cheap, and as well as I take on the government and other necessary any bodies that do this. Really, this is something they need to pump up and really show it out. It's just lack of knowledge. And also the mentality we have, something imported is superior than what we have. I would say my roof, perhaps I got these tiles or whatever from Germany, I got from China or wherever, to seem to be better than the ceramics we have around for the tiles, for example, and other materials. We need to change. It's a total mindset change that we need to do. And locally, our experts also need to come together. I think this is a forum, and affordable housing, we make reference to that because that is something that we want Kenyans really to appreciate, and Kenyans also to put in their contribution and make it cheaper for everyone to afford a house, because actually where you live, it's actually the dignity of a person is very important in our humanity.
And let's cross over to LA, because the erratic shilling, I'm looking at the shillings for the last 1 year. It has been quite erratic, sometimes gaining and sometimes losing marginally. How is it affecting those people who want to invest in the real estate industry, especially you guys in the diaspora, Michelle?
Actually, that's a very weird, it's a really weird way of looking at it when somebody's in diaspora. A weaker shilling hurts somebody in Kenya, but it's a lot easier for somebody in the US too. For example, when a shilling was, a dollar was exchanging at $160, I think it was 160 some shillings. It only takes, what, $30 to, pay, to get somebody 10,000 shillings, right? Which means a property that was being built at, 3-4 million shillings will only require, $1 million shillings is going to be about, $6,000-7,000, right? So it makes it's a lot easier. And I think, and I wish at that particular time when the shilling, and it's still weak, relatively, I wish that people would campaign out here and say, for people who are interested in investing in real estate, this is the best time to invest. So when the shilling is weak, it's really problematic for our people at home in Kenya. But that is an advantage to people who are out in diaspora because their currency, dollar, yen, and pound, and so on, goes a long way. Can buy a whole bunch more stuff than than if the shilling was strong. Now, this is where if you look at the Chinese economy, for example, the Chinese and the Japanese, as a matter of fact, the Chinese and the Japanese for many years artificially deflated their currencies because when their currency was lower, it meant that they would attract more foreign investors. Why? Because you go in for $100,000, now you have enough money to invest on a huge project. So, and I know we had Bonandi talk about this a little bit, and I know many people booed him for that, but it's factual that when the shilling is weak, if the society plays that well and goes out to market, it becomes a lot easier to get foreign investors to come in. At the same time, it becomes, the money that is brought in by diaspora can go exponentially far compared to when the shilling is strong. So both ways, strong or weak, it has its advantages, but we need to learn to embrace whenever international market forces weaken our shilling. We need to figure out ways of embracing that and encouraging foreign investment, because this is really what helped the Chinese economy come back. China was a third world country not too long ago. Japan was decimated by the Second World War, completely decimated. But when they got into the scene, their currencies were extremely deflated to attract international investors, and it's something that is worth for economists to think through and come up with strategies that would be beneficial to our people.
It's easier for them in their diaspora to invest, but unfortunately, it's hurting their loved ones here in the country, and the vice versa is
yes,
true.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, and let me go back to you, Ocheng. I'm looking at University of Nairobi. I was at a function that University of Nairobi had partnered with Elgon Kenya in matters agriculture, and especially for those students who are pursuing agriculture. Do you have any other partnerships so that we may make the real estate industry vibrant, especially on these courses?
This is very great. In fact, I think you are spot on. You see, Ondieki is online, and you are aware that he's in LA?
Yes.
That is one of a lifetime partnership that I think we can be very proud that we brought home. The diaspora connection, the user phone is the networks that touches on some components of East African countries and African countries and that of diaspora. And we can benefit. And many more. You are talking of, the Elgon and all the stuff. Locally, we are also being encouraged to, enter into partnerships with the private to make classy, affordable, any products that you want. We talk of micro house, we talk of those other government agencies, and we are very open to do business in a professional manner with the partnership, with the framework that accords the business initiative. So, yeah.
And because of you can add on that as well.
Yes. We will not touch on all. I think the University of Nairobi is endowed in terms of partnerships, both locally and internationally. Exactly. We don't have all the details, and we don't want to be scrappy about it. What came to my mind, I don't have this thing, but you remember this testing we did for School of Engineering, Faculty of Engineering. We partner with all these things to test what's the strength of the cement that is being used, what's the strength of the material, the steel that is coming in. We've been used severally by all these other organizations, government organizations, just to check the capacity of what is coming in or what's being used in market. We'll not confidently really tell you the partnerships that we have, but University of Nairobi has lots of partnerships. Now with the new chancellor, definitely that's the direction we're looking at. And that's what separates us. What makes this course very unique to the rest is we are not domesticating it per se. We want it to be international. We want real estate agents who have been who undergo this training also to interact with the global, with the, like this course, and through Usafona, many others that we're going to partner with, like we've agreed with them once in a year they'll be inviting our graduates just to move to go to attend a 1 week training, or not really training, seminar in the US. Yeah, just to understand, and also enlist their names under the database so that whoever wants to deal with real estate can hook up a name from there.
All right. And because of the interest of time, we are running out of time. I'm going to give Michael Ondieki from LA in the United States an opportunity for your closing remarks. Ondieki?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I have to thank UNES and UN massively, because this is the gap that we've had for many, many years that needs to be filled. Because when you find transactions being done where people are being ripped off, there's a whole lot of fraud because people don't know what they're doing. I think this course is going to be very helpful in educating those people. Now, that's number one. Number two, it's critically important for other professionals, real estate-related professionals like lawyers and valuers and so on and so forth, to understand that these people who are out there selling without being trained, their job is to complement their work. Go out, because they're salespeople. They go out, find properties, get the properties, and hand their services to the lawyer, to the valuer, and so on and so forth. The third thing that I think is very important to know is that this course being done will not only generate, regulate the industry, but will also enable the government to know who is doing what, so that whoever is doing something that doesn't seem to be legal can actually be followed later on and say, hey, you did something that doesn't seem to work.
Thank you.
And finally, with this, we see situations where people want to buy a house or rent a house, and there are so many websites all over the place where somebody just puts any property there to con people.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ondieki, live from LA. This is a conversation that we really need to broaden, and thank you so much indeed for watching. We have been with two gentlemen from the University of Nairobi, Simplicius Ochieng, who is the Chief Manager Finance Administration at the University of Nairobi, Enterprise and Services at UNES, and we also have the Head of Corporate Communication at UNES, that is Sam Ochieng, giving us a glimpse of some of the courses that are indeed geared and tailor-made to ensure that the real estate sector is also taken care of. Indeed, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and for your insight. And on this, on the second hour, we are going to be looking at conference tourism. What is it? What does it make it tick? And why is Kenya the preferred destination, especially when we come to the East Africa region in terms of these big conferences? We really had the Africa Climate Summit, and as we speak, we have UNEA right here in the country. We'll be talking about that in a while, and also we'll be looking at a number of events that are currently underway in various parts of the country, including Mombasa. Thank you so much for watching this first hour. Back in a while.
Thank you.